Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up here. It all began when we started exploring the wonderful adventures that Moonstone Island has in store. Moonstone Island is an open-world life sim developed by Studio Supersoft that combines farming, exploration, creature collecting, and deck building, all set in a charming sky world where floating islands and gorgeous vistas come standard. If this description has piqued your interest, brush off that vertigo and let's get going. Starting out my journey, I hopped into the tutorial to learn the basics from Mom and Dad, then selected my very first spirit pal. I went with Sheep because he seems like a feisty little devil. And this is when I found myself saying goodbye to my family. I would need to survive on my own, far away from home for the next year. I was given a broom and tried my best at flying, though apparently my best wasn't good enough. It wasn't long before I crashed, broom first, into an island. I ran around collecting some of the things I'd dropped before making a beeline to town to see if it was possible to stay at the inn night one. Turns out, it's not. But to be fair, forcing a pass out that first night is a great way of showing the player when bedtime is. On day 2, the innkeeper Osano let me know Quill had helped carry me in, and I bit my tongue to keep from asking why they hadn't just opened the door when I came knocking. That morning, Mom had sent me the blueprints to make a balloon, and I set about the task of greeting Islanders? Yeah, let's call them Islanders. I found out Professor Zed in the Science Center would pay me for my spirit battle experience, which is pretty neat. And on the East Island, there is a warp whistle I think will definitely come in handy in the near future. On a whim, I picked up the fishing rod from Tobin at the fishing shop. Though, any guesses on how long it will take me to use it? Although he was technically one of the first people I'd come in contact with on the island, Quill was the final islander I encountered that day, and talking to him completed the Meet the Locals quest. Then I came across one of the most beautiful views I've seen in a game. There's just something about floating islands that really gets me. See, Guyana understands. I managed to place down a bridge to reach a Stargate-looking archway where I selected a Cleanse Talisman. If fed to a spirit, I could choose to remove a card from their deck, which I think will be important for deck optimization. Then I headed into a dungeon where I must have disturbed the sleep of this tree robot. This ungentle giant managed to stun me immediately, and I was wishing I'd snagged a spirit friend for Sheep. It was a tough battle, but we managed to whittle down the Guardian eventually, and were rewarded with a permanent stamina increase. Apparently, there is a treasure chest I missed somewhere, but maybe we can check for that another day because it was getting really late, so I raced through the northern island hoping to make it to the inn, but ended up panic placing my tent down way too close to the edge. I'm sure that won't come back to bite me. While harvesting resources on the morning of day 3, I found my very first mine. Inside the mine was an adorable oaken that I asked to join the team. After plundering the mine for a while, I headed into town, making myself a little shortcut across the water for ease of access to my tent. I found out the tavern doesn't open until noon, but at least the door is unlocked so you're not stuck cooling your heels outside in the rain. Once the tavern opened, I purchased Osano's dish of the day, Apparently, the food buffs vary with this dish, though instead of eating it, I decided to give it as a gift to Ophelia. She loved it. Once back at the tent, I decided to plant a few crops. Okay, Sheem, Oaken, you guys gotta move, please. That evening, I tentatively made my maiden voyage via balloon. It was just a hop, skip, and a jump to the closest island in the minimap, but I need to recover some confidence after that broom fiasco. On the island, I came across a moonstone glowing peacefully in the grass. And then an Oaken took advantage of my mini moonstone celebration. Apparently, he chose violence. While exploring more of the island, I came across another Stargate, where I grabbed another cleansed talisman, then ran right into a brick house. And because he made me sing, I had to add him to the party. By now, it was getting late and I wanted to smelt some ore for sprinklers, so I fluted home for the night. I managed to make one sprinkler on day 4, but while watering the crops, I found myself crowded in by spirits again. Alrighty, brick house, I can definitely not see what I'm doing through you. What I could see was a card I really liked when I leveled up Sheep. Upgraded flamethrow that deals 10 damage 4 times and draws 2 cards? Yes, please. Later that day, I ran into a level 5 cool slime, and he was so cute I had to tame him. And also I had Zed's quest asking me to. The rest of the day was spent smelting ore and collecting materials. I did plop a calendar on the wall and am pretty jazzed that I can now see birthdays. This adorable little house spirit also joined me in a happy dance. When I went to bed that night, I gained my very first level in spirits. There are some pretty neat choices in the ability tree, but I went with Spirit Farmer to increase the chance of spirits dropping goodies for me. Brick house jump scared me the next morning as I exited my tent. And while I do appreciate that I have a physical wall guarding me as I explore other islands, I have my concerns. On an island to the east, I ran into the Magic Man in his chicken hut for the very first time, and found he had a store with one of those Stargate talismans available, so I snagged it. I'm curious to see if this shop is accessible daily. Next, I spent a little time on deck management for Sheem, using a Meditate talisman to upgrade Flamethrow, and a Cleanse talisman to remove a Tackle. I also decided to have Brick House stop following me. He's still with me in spirit, but hopefully this would let me see a bit more of my surroundings. Brick House's brother, Brick House, didn't take kindly to my decision and requested we settle things the old-fashioned way. So mad. So toast. I spent the rest of the day running around this new island, absolutely destroying any spirits that crossed my path, fluting home only after locating a moonstone near the center of the island. Back on my home island, I placed down torches so that I could easily find the route to my tent in the dark. Plus, my campsite looks more intentional with a little illumination. I leveled up both combat and foraging that night, selecting one step ahead to draw an additional card turn 1 in combat, and beginning angler to increase the chance of catching silver quality fish. And yes, I have yet to attempt fishing, but we're not going to talk about that. Expecting the Spirit Barn recipe from Zed on day 6, I was excited to see a letter choppering my way. And while it was from Zed, it was not the barn I was searching for. Since I'd discovered 10 spirits, Zed had sent me spirit lenses that would allow me to see the level of a spirit out in the wild, which was neat, but it was no barn. I thought the barn recipe might be locked behind the Moonstone Enchanter, so I set to smelting my very first Moonstone ingot needed to craft that crafting table. Passing by the mailbox, I saw I had in fact received the Spirit Barn recipe from Zed, but apparently his delivery drone had thought the spirit lenses were priority that morning. Osano also sent me a letter about Friday happy hour on Saturday. Hopefully I'll remember that for next week. Next, I asked Farah to upgrade my hammer and did a little happy dance when I saw her turnaround time was immediate. Then I headed over to check the wares in Palo's shop. The cost for Spirit Barn upgrades did not seem too steep, but I'd need that Spirit Barn first. I ended up purchasing a random crafting recipe because who can resist the in-game equivalent of a loot box? While waiting for my Moonstone ingot to smelt, I headed back to the dungeon to track down the— whoops, hey, let's try that again. That's more like it. There were a few spitting plants in my way, but I made it through to the final chest unscathed. I noticed there was a pickup option in the bottom right screen, and lo and behold, you can actually haul off the treasure and the chests in these dungeons. You know I had to run back through the dungeon to pilfer the rest of the chests. I mean, I'm already here. Ooh, and the hot spring still works. Nice. My Moonstone ingot was ready when I arrived back at camp, so I crafted the Moonstone Enchanter to place down in my tent. I had quite a few recipes unlocked, but the one I was most excited about was that spirit barn. I would need another Moonstone ingot and about 100 wood, but that all seemed reasonable. The rest of the evening I spent chatting up the locals and activating this southern talisman gate I'd somehow missed. This time I went with Meditate. I also popped over to another island in the west, but this one was looking rather scary and my tools were not up to the task. So I whistled my worries away and teleported to the safety of my island, where I found another moonstone mere feet from my tent. Overnight, I had a point in social to spend, so I went with Fast Talker to give myself even more opportunities to fail at social interactions. Day 7, Zed gave me even more incentive to build the spirit barn as quickly as possible, with the promise of a payday for any extra resources my spirits drop. I wanted to upgrade a few more tools with the copper I'd smelted, but it looked like some of the shops are closed on Sunday, which is fair. There's always tomorrow. My goal for today was to track down more moonstone, so I set out on my red balloon to do some island exploration. The magic man greeted me at a large tree that he said was the Spring Temple. I'd need to leave offerings to advance through the temple and acquire the Earth Seal. The very first shrine requested a cattail and stone fruit, and luckily I had both on me, so we were in like Flynn. Once inside, I battled a level 5 long log, who didn't give my mighty spirit team any trouble. I now have access to the alchemist wand that would allow me to speed grow plants at the cost of some stamina. The next shrine required both a copper and iron ingot, and I was grateful I had done some smelting over the last few days. I speed grew a vine to reach the next leafy platform, where I battled a level 6 long log. This enemy was clearly a step up from the last, but we burned through the competition, taking minimal damage in the process. Shrine number 3 wanted clay and a moonstone, and while I had a moonstone on me, I decided not to offer it up until I found some clay as well. I headed back out of the shrine to explore the island and came across a lovely little mine where I farmed for ore while waiting for it to be dark enough to spot moonstones. At base camp that night, I set my moonstones to smelting, but they wouldn't be ready until well after bedtime, so my barn would have to wait another day. I have some time to kill before bed, so I thought I might try fishing. Me and fishing minigames have a tumultuous relationship though, so I'm a bit apprehensive, but here goes nothing. A boot! Okay, now we've got one on the line. So, it looks like you just keep your little circle thingy on the fish thingy, and voila! Alright, I am definitely vibing with the fishing minigame, among other aspects of Moonstone Island. I love a good deck builder, and I'm really curious about what the other islands have in store. Speaking of which, the best way to let me know if you also want to see more of this gem of a game is by liking this video. Moonstone Island is a fairly new game, and as I'm recording this, there is very little information on the wiki. My goals if I continue with this run will be centered around collecting spirits, adventuring to as many other islands as possible, and diving into the relationship mechanics unique to the islanders. From what I can tell so far, some residents are naturally easier to befriend, while others will take a bit more effort to crack through their icy exterior. The dating option also has me mighty intrigued. Here's hoping my requests for dates don't fall as flat as most of my jokes have. Come on, Paolo, you just said you like dad jokes. Let me know in the comments who your favorite NPC is so far. Who knows, I might add the top picks to a poll to determine who I'll try to romance. Until then, have a cozy day and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye!